Hello, this is Tito again, just with a quick reminder that we are picking back up where we left off on our last episode for part 2 of our episode with Warshack. Hope you enjoy. Sorry if it's a little disjointed.
Yeah. So the first new card is Agalon the Observer, a 4-mana 4/4. Replace your hero power with Agalon's Vision. And what you do is you look at the top card of your opponent's deck and you can select to put it at the bottom. So it's just you get to kind of get more information on the kind of deck your opponent's playing. You get to disrupt any dredge mechanics. I think this is I don't like control as being the first archetype that I choose to play. I'm more of a mid-range or aggro Andy myself. But this seems fun. This makes me excited to want to play decks that can utilize this in a great way. Yeah, I don't know. I think this card's going to be pretty good. What do you think, Rob?
At first, when I read this card, I didn't realize it was Battlecry. I thought it was just when it was on the board, and I was like, man, this thing sucks. And then I thought of Agalon. I'm like, dude, there's no way that they just ripped Uldar's best, the hardest boss in Uldar, and made him this bad. And then I reread the card, and I'm like, wow, it's just permanent. And 1 mana Battlecry. It's basically very similar to the Spectre's weapon. If anybody remembers, when you draw a card, you could choose to put the card at the bottom and draw a new card, or draw the card that you're only going to draw, but it's for your opponent. And then I look at how that card was good in the sense of how many decks played that card. And unfortunately, not a lot of decks played Sphere, a card that would allow you to choose and draw what you wanted. So to play a 4-mana 4/4 that chooses and allows your opponent to draw and then replaces your hero power, while it does sound good, from previous experiences of what that card does, it is bad. It may be good. I like the effect. I'm going to play with the card. But from what we've had previously in metas where there's cards that do exactly what that does for 1 mana, and it had 3 or 4 durability, it wasn't really played. It was played in 1 or 2 decks, maybe, in the meta, ever. So
It's there to break your twig of the world tree.
Yeah, it wasn't really there for great uses. It was Mozaki Maids or Bird Mage or whatever, and that's pretty much it. But I mean, we'll see. I will play with the card. I like the effect. I think it's cool. No problem with it. I'm gonna have fun. But in actuality, how good is it gonna be in a meta deck? I don't think it's ever gonna. I don't think it's gonna be in some meta crazy. I don't think it's gonna be in a tier 1 deck. Unless
this is the card. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was done.
All right, this is the card that's like you said, the Tony with the Fires of Zinajari steam cleaner that everyone's like, oh, this is going to be the tyrant of the meta. No, everyone's posting hey, you play this with Plagiarizer and Gnome Feratu and with your Harvester of Envy and blah blah blah. And no, this is Ticketus. This is the card that sucks, but everyone likes the effect and just keeps wanting to play it, and you get tilted when you lose to it. And people just loved having it happen, but you end up playing a 40% win rate with it. This is going to be the card that for the next 3 months, and Donkey posted this today, this is the card that Zacho's going to tell us for the next 3 months, stop running this card in your deck. It's bad.
Yeah.
And people aren't going to listen. So that's where I think this is. I think it's going to be fun. I don't think it's going to be good, but I think it's going to be overplayed, and it's going to be very tilting when you lose to it.
Well, I think so I learned this, I don't say fact, but I the way I thought about cards and milling cards was very different after I thought about this. So, when Gnome Feratu was a great example, right? So you play Gnome Feratu, a 2-mana 2/3, and it says Battlecry, discard the top card of your opponent's deck. And that card, you value it as your top card of your opponent's deck, 1 card. Whether it's the best card in their deck or the worst card of the deck, it doesn't matter until they basically have no cards in their deck, because the card that they're going to draw next is completely random. So when somebody says, "Oh, great burn," the burn doesn't matter because they're still drawing a card from their deck, and the card that they draw from their deck is going to be random. So whether I hit the best card in their deck or their worst card in their deck, they're still getting a card, which I don't know what it is, which could be perfect for that particular situation. So until they have 0 cards left in their deck, like if I Gnome Feratu their last card, then Gnome Feratu is the best card I could have played. But until that point, it doesn't matter what I burn or discard. It's useless. They're still drawing a card. Like, like I had a at the time, I think it was VLPS or some like top 25 legend player like explain the fundamentals of milling and discarding cards when your opponent's deck is not empty. And they went through this giant Excel spreadsheet of percentages and random cards, and then they went through the philosophy of like random generation and like random draw percentages, and then they went through their hindsight of like it, and then it like after like 25 minutes of explanation, I'm like, you know what? I agree. Like for ever since then, like I'm just like milling, like changing the top card of your opponent's deck will not change the outcome of the game the majority of the time. It doesn't matter. So like, yeah, I can see the top card of my opponent's deck and put it at the bottom, but the next card they draw could have been the card that I didn't like. I can't see their hand, right? So like, I don't know if me putting this card from the top to the bottom is better or worse. It's very limited information that you have. And the next card that they draw could be better. You don't know, you do not have that information. So unless you can like the Gravekeeper and Rogue, which you can see 3 cards in your opponent's hand, get rid of one and put it in their deck, that card is good. Because you have information to go off of, which is 3 cards in your opponent's hand, and you're actually removing one from play. This is not removing a card from play. You're merely just exchanging a card for another card, and the card that you're exchanging and the card that you're not exchanging are both random because you don't know what they are before you choose them. All right, sorry for the super long.
No, you're good.
No. Here's the problem with your argument, and I agree with you 100%. But here's the problem with your argument: player goes in, they play their Gnome Feratu on turn 2, they hit their opponent's Il'gynoth, their combo piece, and they have that dopamine hit that hey, I just beat their deck with a turn 2 play, and so now it doesn't like the facts of how it plays out over 1,000 games doesn't matter. Because they have the memory and the dopamine hit of, hey, I just burned the combo piece because of that.
Yeah.
So that's where it happens. And that's why Ticketus, everyone played Ticketus even though it was a bad card. That's why people kept playing what's his face? The Mad Duke. They kept playing him even when he was bad because it feels great when you take that combo piece and you won that game because of that moment. Even if statistically over a long period of time, it doesn't matter. So that's why people are still going to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like, pocket metas are a thing. So if, like, you have a player that's literally, they're in Diamond 10 to Diamond 5, they're going to go against a different meta than, like, Legend 2000 to Legend 500, right? So, like, you do have these pocket metas where players play decks and they find that they have a greater success with a worse win rate card because of the pocket meta that they're in, and they don't ever get out of that pocket meta because of, well, one, they might not change that card to the better card, or they're just not skillful enough to like pilot whatever they're piloting out of there. So you have like a lot of biases based on the player's skill on the particular pocket meta their rank happens to be in. You know what I mean? There's a lot of factors that go into Hearthstone, a lot of ranks. Most of the players who play this game are what is it, like 95% of the players are below Diamond 10. Like that is, I mean, not that there's a problem with that, but like that skews massive amounts of data. So when you're looking at like top 100 legend decks, you're like, oh, these are the best decks. It's like, well, those are the best decks to the top 100 people in the game, and those like 0.1 or 0.01% of the player base, and you're not that. So those aren't the decks that you should probably be playing. Because you're not top 100 legend. No offense. So I don't know. There's
Pirate Warrior, good for climbing, not good at type legend. Like those are the
there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and I had one final thought on this card, and it was Sidisi made a good point on it. He was like, okay, so you look and you see that I have a top deck King Crush. You gonna give it to me, or you gonna put it on the bottom of my deck so I can get 2 of them?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, You like, so it's turn 7, right? And you don't want your opponent to get the crush on 8 or 9, so you put it at the bottom, but then you give them the 7 mana spell that lets them pull the king crush, or you give them the copy card off the next card, but yet they wouldn't have been able to play the 7 mana card off the top if that's the card you would have gave to them. You know what I mean? Like, those are the situations you're in where like it's
Yep.
impossible.
And this card I think will be better next year when Dredge rotates, if they don't add too many more Dredge cards. Like, I don't think it'll be like amazingly better, but I think the fact that we have Dredge as a mechanic, we're probably going to see more of it as a counter to this type of tech if it matters. Like, if hey, you just put my combo piece at the bottom, guess what? I'm just going to dredge it back, whatever. So maybe not, but I think that Dredge is going to be kind of a natural reaction to this card if it sees play.
I think if there's any synergy to this card, it will be good. Granted, we don't know if there's any synergy at the moment, right? We don't know what the next mini set is. We don't know what the next expansion is. We don't know what next year brings, right? So while this card may not look good now, seeing the opponent's card putting it at the bottom, there may be cards in the future that synergize greatly with this hero power, right? So, or this just effect in general. So, as of now,
Right.
I don't think it's great, but I've said that a lot, and then they print, quite a few support cards, and then all of a sudden it's playable. There's some synergy there, that there's a card effect that we didn't see coming.
Like Benedictus, until Benedictus wasn't useful until we got enough support for it. I mean, that's
Benedict Zephyrus. I didn't see Zephyrus coming.
Yeah.
All right, Doc, what's the other card we have to look at?
Yeah, so the other card is Ignis the Eternal Flame. He is a 4-mana 2/4 battle cry. If you forged a card this game, craft a custom weapon.
Huh?
And so there's 3 weapons: a 1-mana 2/2, a 5-mana 3/4, and a 10-mana 5/6. And then there's a bunch of different effects that get added onto them. I currently do not understand or do not know how those effects get applied, whether it's just like the number of forging or the value of the forged card. I don't know that. But
I think
it's going to be fun.
I believe it works like Kazakus.
Sure.
Pretty much, you just have to forge to activate it, I believe, and then you have your choices. Like,
and then you get the pools.
You get the pools, and then you won't get every option
Okay.
every time. Like, they've specifically made it so you can't build the same weapon every single time, so you can work around it. Warshack, is this the first time you're seeing this card?
Yeah, so for me, I'll be honest, a lot of people don't like this, but I do not like reviewing, looking at, or caring about any of the card reveals. If it was up to me, I would not look at any cards and have no idea what this expansion, like, they could tell me it's Titans, and then you release all cards when the expansion releases, and then that day, that's when you see all the cards. Like, I know I'm an oddball on this, but I hate card reviews. I just absolutely, like, when I see a YouTuber or another content creator who doesn't play the standard format post a 15-minute video on a standard card and they don't play standard, and it, like, I know I shouldn't be saying this, but there's just something about it, man. So I've never been a fan of card reveals. So
That's
no,
fair.
I have not seen this card.
No, my favorites were always Trump SC when he would
Those were
really
funny.
kind of say this.
Those are funny.
This card is garbage, and it's like a 5-star card.
Yeah. Defile was 1-star card.
Yep.
And that's again the reason, like, people like base a lot of, like, a new expansion comes out, and then, like, they'll base, like, a lot of, like, what they think they know on these reviews of people who don't play the format, who don't know what these cards do, who are not class specialists, and they'll be like, "Oh, this card sucks. I didn't craft it," or like, I disenchanted it. And it's like, bro, this card's amazing. Like, what are you like, who told you that? And they're like, "Oh, he rated it as a 1 or a 2." Like, what do you mean? It's like, no, like, come on. Like, don't, like, it's pure speculation. Like, people thought Glide was bad. Like, Glide was bad, and then it was amazing, and then it was bad again. Like you just don't know. So, like, I don't like pretending I know about something that I don't know about. And that's kind of what card reviews is. But I should look at it a little bit differently, as, like, more fun. But at the same time, like, people base, like, what they craft off of decks I play. and like what I review. If I say a card's amazing, they're gonna craft it, and if it sucks, I get yelled at. So
I think you're a lot like me, whereas if like my wife could tell me, "Hey, your Christmas presents are behind this door," and I'm not going to look because I'll get them at Christmas. That's part of the
there's
joy
no
of Christmas.
point.
And I'm the same way where I don't love the card reviews as much. I mean, a lot of people really like the card review season. I'm okay with it. I get that this last month is super slow, and it's something that helps fill the content gap, because now we have stuff to talk about, because no one's really wants to talk about the meta because it's boring or whatever. People are done, they're tired, they just want to get to the next set, and this builds up excitement for the next month, and obviously they want to get people to buy it. So I get it, and I'm with you too. And I'm less worried about, like, a lot of times people speculate. It's like there's no real hard way to do it until you have the whole set. I know Enthralmon hates that. It's like, I can't judge this card until I have the whole set. But it's true. Like until you can have the whole set and you know what these cards are gonna do,
it's
and
impossible.
what like there might be just one card that makes
everything work.
Algalon good.
Yep.
And if you don't know about it, you think, well, it's very middling. But oh, by the way, if you now get 3 copies of the top card of your opponent's deck, now maybe you change your mind about that. So it's a fun thing. I don't hate it, but I also, if they said, hey, we're just gonna drop a whole setting, like that time they dropped the entire adventure for the Agoro, for the League of
Explorers
Heroes. Like, they were like, hey, look it, we have these heroes. Hey, it comes out Tuesday.
Which
that
was like
awesome.
2 days away. It was insane.
Right.
I literally logged into Hearthstone and didn't know there was an adventure coming out. And that was like the best thing ever. Like, I literally just logged in. I was like, oh my God, I have a whole new adventure. I don't know what any of these cards do. Let me start brewing. Like, and then I spent there for like an hour or two just like figuring out stuff. I had no idea. And that's when I I was still like starting Hearthstone. Like, I wasn't really pushing like I do now. But yeah, that was amazing to me. I like Journey to Ungoro was just like, boom.
And think about, so right now we have the card reveal season, and then we have theory crafting streams, and then the meta, we have decks to play with that first day of the meta, and then even things still get figured out, and we usually find things out over the next 2 weeks, and then it kind of gets solved. And if we didn't have that theory crafting stream, and if we didn't have all those cards, I think, how much longer does that experience last?
I honestly don't think theory crafting streams matter almost at all.
There are restrictions. Yeah, you have to only take 20 cards.
There with the theory crafting streams, you have to play 10 cards of the new expansion, which automatically limits all deck. Like, 1/3 of your deck needs to be only the new expansion. So like nothing's going to be refined at that point. You can get an idea, but people get a very similar idea through theory crafting anyway. They have like a month, 2 weeks to theory craft. So like that doesn't matter. Most of the people in the theory crafting stream are only going for content. So they're going for like the super highlight stuff, which is no problem at all, because their job is to make the expansion look as exciting as possible. Which is, at least that's how I look at theory crafting. I've been in the last 4 or 5 theory crafting streams. So like, all I want to do is to make the expansion look as exciting as possible. So Hearthstone, people play it, have fun with it, buy packs. Like, that's my job. So that's what I try to do. A lot of people think the theory crafting streams develop the meta. I don't think so at all. The best decks in the theory crafting stream almost never become meta decks, or at least tier 1 or tier 2 decks, to be honest. It's so just like differentiated and like limited that it's not a good representation at all. It's really just to show off the new cards, in my opinion. I think
Agreed.
I think,
but it does define the first couple days.
It does. Oh, for sure. Whatever Tice plays in the theory crafting stream, for sure, is what the meta looks like 1 to 2 days out. For sure, that's what people play. But then they soon find out, like, every expansion, that deck sucks, and then actual good decks pop up. But like this, that's every expansion. It may be like an outline for the deck, right? Like Galakrond Shaman. Like, yeah, like that deck was just good. Like, there are some exceptions to decks that are just bonkers, right? But for the most part, it's just to hype it up. It's to help the streamers out. I'm probably biased, honestly, because I'm now invited. Before I was invited to theory crafting streams, I hated them, to be honest. I felt left out. But now that I'm in it, like, I'm definitely biased. So sorry. This answer is completely biased.
No, that's fine. That's you have your biases.
But
All
I
right, so
don't
real
think it
quick-
determines the meta. I don't think it determines the meta.
No, and that's not what I was saying. What I'm saying is, I think it develops the start of the meta, where it creates our starting point for the first couple days. And I think if we didn't have those, I think maybe that period
It would buy
over
us
the
what, a
first-
day? Like how much time do you think that would buy us? A day or two max?
I think it would buy the higher. I think it would buy more than you think. I think it'd probably buy maybe 4 or 5 or 6 days, because not every because it takes a while. How long does it take the decks from the top meta to trickle down to bronze? It takes a while. It
No.
first
Do you think a 6-hour theory crafting stream speeds up the meta by 6 days?
No, because it's not just a 6-hour stream. It's then we have all the theory crafting before that. Then we have a 6-hour stream where we've seen these decks in action, and then we have another week for people to chew on what they saw and refine them. And so that's
Okay.
it. If it was
Okay.
if it was just hey, today Monday we're doing theory crafting stream,
And then Tuesday it comes out.
That'd be different. But I think
Okay.
we have enough time between the theory crafting and the event, the release, that people actually get to refine more and more.
Okay.
Things.
You know what? I can agree with you. I think you're right. I think it does. That does make sense for sure. I think the refining of the creation of the deck, the implementation of the deck, seeing the deck, and then a week before the expansion releases, that all of that combined gives players a good idea of what they want, and it speeds it up. I definitely at least a few days for sure. Okay, I'll get on board with that.
And it's always, then some deck emerges as the top, and then some decks try to beat it, and then and then they nerf a couple things real quick, and it's always a process. But real quick, so stuff to say real quick, because we're already hour 20 in right now. But,
Sorry.
what are our final? Oh no, this is great. What are your? I'm glad we started early. What are our thoughts on this card, just real quick? Do we think it's going to be a good card? Do we think it's just going to be a fun card? Or do we think it's going to be a bad card? Doc, go ahead.
Well, if it's like Kazakus, it'll have very high rolls, and then its low rolls will be extremely underwhelming, but it'll be, no matter what, it'll be fun, just because the crazy randomness that was OG Kazakusan or Kazakus was so much fun in Mean Streets. Being able to play it and being able to see the discover screen pop up, you click which option you want, and then based off of the matchup you're in or what your deck's trying to do, there's an avenue you want to try to explore and find. I think it'll be a fun card to play with. But we'll just, like with any card, we'll have to see in the actual meta to determine whether or not it'll be good. I think it's going to be a fun experience. There's going to be fun highlights from it for sure.
Shaq, what do you think?
Yeah, so unfortunately I cannot give you an answer because there's too much information about this card. This card breaks into a base weapon of 1 cost 2/2, 5 cost 3/4, 10 cost 5/6. From there you have Poisonous Lifesteal, Wind Fury, also damages adjacent minions. Your hero is immune while attacking, and that breaks into a special ability of after your hero attacks, summon a 2/4 8 cost minion, again based on the 1 5 10 cost that you picked before. It's literally just like the Kazakus, where you used to build your own potion. And depending on where you pick the 1, the 5, or the 10, you know what I mean? The effect was higher. Same thing goes for this weapon right here. I have it pulled up. So, you have, after your hero attacks, summon a 2/4 8 cost minion. Battle Cry, deal 2/4 6 8 damage. After your hero attacks, draw 1 2 3 cards. Death Rattle, deal 1 2 4 damage to all enemies. After your hero attacks, gain 2 4 8 armor. And that again goes with the traits that we just talked about, which were Poisonous Lifesteal, Wind Fury, Cleave, and Hero Immune, and then also goes with the 1 mana 2/2, 5 mana 3/4, and then 10 cost 5/6. So, given all that, I think in Highlander decks, which I'm assuming is this forged, I don't even know what, if you forged a card this game, what does that even mean?
Okay, so there's a forge mechanic for this expansion.
Oh, yes, the Forge. Yeah, I saw one card that said Forge. Oh.
You pay You pay
Yeah.
2 mana basically to upgrade the card.
Yo, this card is good. You can
Yep.
play this in any deck. I'm sure there will be Forge cards that'll be good. And this is you don't even play this as a 2 mana 2/4. You don't care. This is basically get yourself a dope weapon. Yeah, this card is obviously probably not played in aggro decks, but any sort of like control deck, for sure. Why would you not play this card? Yeah, this seems
Yeah,
lit.
I think there's a lot of good things here. There's no restriction really. Like you have to forge a card. It's not I can't play a 4 card minion besides this one. It's not I have to Highlander deck. It's play a card you're probably going to play anyway. So that right there is a big win over the previous versions of like these kind of create something cards. People are going to play this card wrong quite a lot. They're going to go for the 5 cost weapon and they're going to go for the 10 cost weapon because they think it's going to have a lot of good value when they really probably most of the time need to just take the cheap one and get the effect and go. I think I think people are going to really play this card a lot wrong, and I think it's also going to make a lot of people play more Vipers instead of playing good cards in their deck. So I think this card is interesting. I think it's going to make a lot of things happen. But I think by the end of the expansion, I don't think we're going to see a ton of it.
I mean, just looking at like just first thing base weapon. If I'm looking at Control Warrior, not that that's my favorite deck or anything, but like a 5 cost axe, a 5 mana 3/4. Let's give it Wind Fury or Cleave, and then after your hero attacks, gain 4 armor. So you have a 5 mana 3/4, gain 4 armor every time you attack cleave enemy minions.
It's pretty good.
Like what? Gain 16 armor, kill 12 minions, or deal 12 damage. Like,
But how many times are you going to hope that you're going to be like, all right, all I need to do is get the right things here. And
it's
you don't get the right
honestly not
things.
so. Base weapon, you pick the 1, the 5, or the 10. That's guaranteed. You pick one of those. Like, that's guaranteed. After that, the traits are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 3 out of 5 traits. For the Poisonous Lifesteal, Wind Fury, Cleave, and your hero is immune while attacking. That's 5. So you're substantially better odds than the Symphony of Sins Warlock spell at 5 mana. And then your special ability is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as well. So you're 1 out of 3, which is guaranteed, and then 5 into 5, and you discover 3 of the 5. Very high odds. Those are actually great odds. Over
you're high on this
50%.
card. All right, I can dig it. I think it'll be interesting. I think that it'll be. I think people are going to play it wrong. I think that's going to be the advantage. I think
People
are
being
going
bad for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, Doc, I know it's getting late, but I think it's time for the main course. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right. So, Warshack, you are a deck builder. You are an off-meta deck builder. I guess saying off-meta deck builder is kind of redundant because if you're building something that's not something that's already in the meta, it's going to be off-meta. That's kind of just what it is. So, why do you do that instead of net building, net deck building? I know you get bored playing the same net decks over and over again, but why not play all the net decks?
Yeah. So playing net decks, or what decks are good right now, is really not the reason I play strategy. If a deck is good, people are playing it, they're winning with it. Playing and winning with a deck that is proven to already be good provides me, just personally, not as much satisfaction as building something that isn't very good, that people don't play, and turning it into something viable. That's always just been something I've done, whether I've played Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic. I've always just kind of like looked at a card and been like, man, why does no one play this card? Or why does no one play this color? And then I look at that, and I try to find interesting cards within that color or class. And then again, I try to make those work. Whether it works or not is different, but a lot of the times I can get it to work above a 50% win rate. We do make some great content on it, and we do hit legend. Like every season for the past 5 years, I've hit legend every month with some form of off meta deck that I've come up with and brewed up. We play, 50 to 100 games. I refine it, and then does well. And then the next month, I figure out a different deck to do. Sun months may be a little bit more quirky than others, depending on how the meta feels. Some metas are easier to play off meta decks than others. This one being one of the hardest, in my opinion, metas to ever play, just because the good decks are just so much better than any other thing. But that's just what I enjoy. And then if I have to play pure paladin or some deck to like win, and that's the only thing I can do, well, maybe I won't play Hearthstone anymore. Like Hearthstone has always been just a game I like to explore, being creative and deck.
See, I find that interesting you say that because right now I don't feel like there are too many power outliers in the meta. It feels like to me there's just so many decks you can play, and that's where the difficulty is. It's like and that's kind of leads into the next question. It's like, so when you build your decks, when you're building these decks, do you typically say, hey, I want to take Symphony of Sins and see how I make it good? Or do you say, hey, right now we're seeing a heck of a lot of pure Paladin. How do I counter that in a way that's not currently out there that's going to really take advantage of that? What's your kind of approach there?
Both. So if there's like 2 or 3 decks that are overwhelming on ladder, I'll try to like figure out something that isn't played that does well against them. And then if there's just an underplayed card that I think is good, then I'll try to focus on how to make that card good at a time at which I'm playing against those particular decks. So, like Symphonies, the card got buffed. I've seen slightly less Control Priest, so like the deck is performing well, and then what's a deck that you can play Symphonies in? Draxus, right? Okay, what combos well with Draxus? Jailer. You Jailer, and then you can get Draxus for 1 mana. And you can play Symphonies for 1 mana. If you're not playing against Control Priest, then they won't like identity theft you and take your Symphony card. So like there's just a lot of like kind of honestly is like pocket meta. Whatever I'm playing against and queuing against a lot. Like today I played against 0 Shamans, and it was mainly just Hunter, Rogue, and Mage. So it's like, what can I play today or this week that's good against those particular classes? You know what I mean? So it really just depends on like what people are playing at my particular rank at that particular time, what balance changes just happened, and what people aren't playing, And today I played against 0 Shamans. So I played Totem Shamans today, and I had a 85% win rate from like Diamond 5 to Diamond 1. I lost 2 games. Totem Shaman.
Nice. So when you build these decks, like, do you start from the ground up, or I mean, sometimes I'm sure you do, or do you say, hey, I want to take Outcast DH, but I want to play this card, and how do I make that work in this? And do you take like a shell that already exists and kind of tweak it, or do you always start from like from a fresh kind of start?
It depends what I'm trying to do with it and the card that I'm trying to build it around. Like if I'm just trying to build like an Outcast DH, I'll honestly just look up my previous builds and previous expansions, use that as like a foundation. Whatever expansion cards we lost, I'll take them out and then see what new cards we can put in. But sometimes like we'll go from the ground up. Like if I feel like there's just a general misconception of how the deck should be played, then yeah, we'll go ground up on it. But it depends. Like sometimes I'll take what the meta build is. I'll be like, hey, everybody plays this card. We're not playing this card. Like back when everybody played Leroy Jenkins, I'd take that card out. We're not playing Leroy Jenkins. Everybody plays it. We're taking it out. So like I will take meta decks and remove every popular card from it until every card is like sub 30% win rate, and then add my own stuff. It really just depends on like the deck and what we're trying to achieve with that particular build.
And sometimes you just kind of chasing like the YouTube there, trying to get the highlights.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the high roll. Sometimes it's chasing YouTube highlights. I really don't. Every stream is different what we're trying to go for, right? So, and then most, like more than 50%, it doesn't work. Like, don't get me wrong. Not every time I try something, it works. Like that's the big common misconception is be like, oh man, this isn't the best way to build this deck. And I'm like, bro, I fucking know. Like, I know that this deck is bad, man. I'm trying to make it good. Work with me here, man. Like, I know that this card is a 0.1% win rate, but we're trying. Like, I guarantee, I know I can go to Hearthstone, deck tracker and copy the best deck. Trust me, after my 10 years of Hearthstone, I know I can do this, but I choose to do this. And I'm trying to make this, work. So.
Yeah, I tried to. So I occasionally try to do this kind of thing because we've had Edelweiss on a couple times, and I like the deck build, but I'm not great at it. I spent an enormous amount of time trying to make the Tony Death Knight work. Oh, excuse me, Demon Hunter work, where you build up a giant Glaive Tar, you Tony, you swing, and you burn like a bunch of their deck. And I'm like, I don't care if I just want one highlight where I can like make a YouTube out of it and post, and I never got there. But it sounded like
that's like a 1 out of 50. Fun. That's like a 2%. Yeah, that's one of those games where it just goes perfect for you. Yeah.
So obviously you say winning is not really all that important to you. As far as, I mean, you want to win, you want to get there, but like the journey, it sounds like it's more important than the destination to you. How often do you try to take a, like you mentioned this a little bit, you prefer to take classes that are at the bottom and try to make them better, and how often are you successful with that?
So like I said, it's less than 50% of the time for sure. Like, you don't finding a gem in the rough. I mean, like, look at Funky Monkey. Like, he pioneered like Libram Penflinger Paladin, right? And how many decks has like Funky Monkey like played, and like, you know what I mean? Like, posted a video up. But like, Penflinger Libram Paladin was like actually a meta deck. Like, that was a tier 1 deck. That was banger. Granted, I hated that deck, but he made that. That was his creation. And to make something like that requires an intense amount of like deck building skill, class specialty, and I don't have that. Like, I do not have a class specialty. I play every class. You know what I mean? We play a deck. We refine it enough to get it above a 50% win rate and to show that there's something there. But is the deck refined to the point of like perfection? Absolutely not. It requires thousands of games to do that, right? So like, my hit rate of like, this is a banger, absolutely less than 50%. Absolutely. Like, we'll play decks with like maybe like 3 out of 4 decks that we play. I should rephrase it. 1 out of 4 decks that we deck test and play make it to a YouTube video. That it's worthy, that I would be like, hey guys, you should play this deck. Give it a shot. Or like, at least take a look at it. Like, we'll play a total of 4 decks over a course of like 3 days, and one of them will make it to a YouTube video. Others may make it to like a highlight on TikTok. Granted, I'll make shorts of like highlights and stuff of other decks, but like, I'm never going to recommend an absolutely terrible deck for people to craft. Like, my meme decks, they will win at least 50% of the time if played correctly.
Yeah, and we did ask Funky about the Penflinger Leaving Paladin. He said it wasn't me.
What? No way.
No.
He takes credit for that deck 100%.
That's what Penflinger used to say. Wasn't me.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No. Absolutely. So, but speaking of that, have you ever had one of your creations go meta, or any of your creations go meta?
It's hard to honestly say, because as a smaller to medium content creator, a lot of the times when players of our size will play a deck, and we'll post it on YouTube or post it on Twitter or play it on the game, a larger, more prominent player will play a very, very similar deck with maybe 1 or 2 different cards. It'll get picked up, and that'll go meta. But it won't be card for card exactly my deck. But the correlation between me playing like a Death Rattle Druid with Womper, and then 3 days later, a Womper Druid goes meta and hits rank 1 Legend, which is 2 cards off of my list, and somebody else gets credit for it, happens 3 or 4 times per expansion. And it just is what it is with a card game. I know, like, you know what I mean? You change 2 cards and you hit rank 1 legend. That's not my deck. Like, it is what it is. But
Do you ever
like,
think about being a little more proactive on that though? Being like, here's my deck. Like I know you make a YouTube content and all that, but do you ever try to like
you
get ahead of
can't
that? Or
you can't push when somebody has like an audience of like 100x you. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, hey guys, I played Womper Druid and I did this with it. And then like somebody with 100x goes, I hit rank 1 legend. Like, you get you know what I mean? Like, granted, I'm not saying I built Womper Druid, but that's just an example of like many times, like, you know, Arcane Mage, Quest Mage, Death Rattle Druid, 30 card Blood Decay, you know, the Spellburst Frost Decay. I mean, there's, you know what I mean? Like, we cover so many different decks that different people play that change a couple cards. But I mean, that's card games, man. Like, they made the deck better. That's their version, and that's what they post, and that's what they did with, and they played it better. So like, I don't really have a problem with it, to be honest. It's
do
just
you
the
get credit?
way.
Do you ever get a shout out sometimes though? People say like, hey, I took Warshack's deck and I did
If it's a
this.
friend,
Like,
yes. So like, if it's like the people that I know literally looked at my deck and changed it. Like, I know Funky Monkey. Like, I will look at Funky Monkey's decks because he does the same thing as me and be like, damn, Funky Monkey, this is a banger. Let me take this. Let me see if I can change it. And if I change it, I'll give him credit. Be like, hey, I got like the base from Funky Monkey. I changed 2 cards, but this is Funky Monkey's deck. And I do that because he's my friend. Same thing with Ecor 100. Same thing with Card Hellscream. I did the same thing with Draco Cat, D Money Games, all these guys. I'm friends with them. We share decks. Or when they post, I will see it and stuff like that. But some, like, again, when you get to a certain like size or like just a certain like legend rank or whatever, like, you kind of just like, regardless of changing 1 or 2 cards, it's your deck at that point, and it is what it is. Like, it really depends on like how friendly you are with that person, if they want to say this came from you. And a lot of people don't know. Like, a lot of people just see, like, a viewer will just send in a deck and be like, hey, this is this, and then they'll take it, post it, send it, and then like they'll modify it, and they don't know where it came from, right? Like, they have no idea that this deck came from this YouTube video, which was posted 2 days ago from Regis. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just impossible to keep track of stuff like that unless you're like really in tuned with like the Reddit meta, the Twitter meta, you know, like, hey, how close you are with the community and stuff like that. So
the Blue Sky meta, the Threads meta.
yeah. I mean, there's a million different things, right? So it's impossible to say, but depending like on the creator, like, you know, I made a Quest Warrior deck, and I think Ecor within like a day had played it and was like, this thing's a banger. And then he like immediately made a YouTube video on it, and he posted, and he's like, Warshack's meta breaking Quest Warrior, and that video did great for him. And like, I was appreciative because, you know, he was like, the deck was card for card mine. He didn't need to put me in there, and I wouldn't even gonna yell at him if he didn't. But yeah, some creators do, some creators don't. It's, you know, it depends.
Now, when you refine your decks, when you're building something, what's kind of your process for refinement? How do you kind of determine like, hey, I need to take this card out. Maybe I should put this card in. Like, do you work with statistics, or do you just go with the feels, or?
It's all, everybody's a different skill level. Everybody is in their own ranks. Everybody is in their own pocket meta until you get like to a new meta, which will be like, you know, Diamond 10 to Diamond 5 pocket meta, Diamond 5 to Legend pocket meta, Legend 3000 to 2000 pocket meta. So it really, like, you want to cater your deck to what you're seeing. And like, a lot of the misconceptions is people will take like, oh, this person won Grandmasters with this deck this weekend. Like, I'm going to play this deck that they won Grandmasters with. And it's like, well, that doesn't work because they got to, not only is it a tournament format, they got to ban a class. You know what I mean? Like, you got to ban your worst matchup for your deck lineup. And there's people who will just spam those like top tournament decks. It's like, bro, tournament decks, like, while they may be good ladder decks sometimes, if you're in the right pocket meta, like, there is a whole strategy to the lineup that they brought because they get to ban a class, and then also who they're playing against, and then on top of that, the region that they're playing in, because different regions play different styles of decks. So yeah, absolutely. You know, changing decks and changing particular cards and how I build stuff depends on the rank and the pocket meta I'm in. So
And with the tournament decks too, a lot of times, not only are they get to choose the bands, they're also playing tech cards that are targeting very specific things in the cards in the decks they're letting go through, and no, understanding a tournament meta, which is a lot different. So
Yeah.
like they're gonna, it's complicated. And yeah, a lot of times that happens, and sometimes a lot of times you can just take the deck that you know people are going to start bringing and target that because you know, hey, everyone's going to be playing that deck that meaty one this weekend with, so I'm just going to farm it. So what are some of your favorite decks that you have created that are Warshack originals, even if somebody else claimed credit for it down the road?
Galakron, a budget Galakron Warlock deck. That's one that strikes me out front because it was like I posted that to Reddit. We went from like I think silver to legend, and it was like a 2,000 dust deck because Galakron was free, right? All the Galakrons were free, so it was like a 2,000 dust deck, extremely budget. It was like an imp deck before anybody was playing imp decks, and I knew because there was like one card in there that I had a one of because I had 29 cards. I was like, man, what do I play as my last card? And I put in this card that no one plays. I forgot what it was. And then somebody had posted that same deck list and my same write-up to competitive Hearthstone. And I was like, hey man, you could like you could take the deck, but dude, you took the one of card I picked and my same write-up. So Galakron Warlock was one of the ones that stood out to me the most. Another one being I mean, I've been seeing, honestly, a lot of my Arcane Mage and my Light Show Mage popping up on ladder. I played like 3 of those decks today, like Light Show Mage. And let me tell you, I hadn't seen a single person playing a Light Show Mage in like 2 months, 3 months. And then today I saw like 3 of them, and I posted that YouTube video like 2 or 3 days ago. So like I honestly, Light Show Mage is a super fun deck I've been seeing. I'm glad people are playing it. Honestly, I'm happy to face it because it's a super fun deck. Another deck that I've pioneered, it's honestly like back in the day, quite a few Control Warrior builds with like the Blackwing Corruptor, the 5 mana 5/4. If you have a dragon, deal 3. That was a big one. Like tempo, there was a 2 mana 3/3 with charge if you had a dragon in your hand. So there was like a tempo like Dragon Warrior. That both me and Fibonacci, if anybody remembers him, had played back in the day, and me and both Fibonacci were like refining this tempo warrior, but everybody just credits Fibonacci, even though me and him started whispering each other's lists, and he was like, oh, sick, I didn't think of that, and I was like, oh man, you're playing this, that's awesome. And me and him were like going back and forth, and he was like I think like 152 legend, and I was like 180-ish, and we just kept queuing into each other like for like 5 times in one day, and it was just like sick, and we were just like going back and forth. Super nice guy. So like that's another deck I helped like become super awesome and great. So
do you remember your first deck that you got real traction on?
Honestly, first deck, I have no idea. Like, if I were to look back on YouTube, I could see, like, you know what I mean? If you gave me, like, a couple seconds and I went back and looked at views to see which deck I got traction on, but off the top of my head, like, the main thing I always went to was just, like, Control Warrior, to be honest. Like, I was always just, whatever Control Warrior deck I could build, that's what I, like, went to first. Like, no matter what expansion came out, it was always, the first 1 or 2 videos I would post are always, Warrior, and then after that's normally Mage.
Do you remember what? This is kind of a side, but do you remember what the first deck you got Legend with was? Was it a Control Warrior?
Ooh, I'm assuming it was Warrior. I'm gonna take a hard guess it was Warrior, but honestly, I had no idea. Like I was playing Hearthstone so casually and like just not like I wish I would have taken it so much more serious, man. Like when everybody asked me about like how my content creation like was at the beginning, it was so bad. Like I didn't talk to any other content creators. I didn't look at any other content creators on YouTube. I didn't look at what decks were being posted. I didn't add tags in my videos. I didn't even add titles. I literally typed in like Hearthstone Mage deck, and that was the title of my video. Like it was just so bad. Like, and it did like I don't know how, but those videos would get like 10,000 views, which are like more than views than I get now. And the video was like Hearthstone Mage deck. It's like what? I guess it was just like the time, man. But like, Yeah, I honestly have no idea what deck I hit Legend with first. I'm assuming it had to be Warrior, to be honest. But
Like,
I've hit Legend
yeah,
since I want to say Nax/GVG. But like those days, man, I have no idea what I was posting or playing. Like I was just
yeah.
playing so casually.
I know my first one was Zalae Hunter, because
Oh,
with the because I was struggling to get there, and it was such a grind, and it's like I know I can do it. And I remember like that month of where I was when I was playing games. I was on a road trip. My wife was driving. We were going to pick up some piece of furniture she had bought off of Facebook Marketplace or something like that, and it was like an hour and a half drive. I'm like, what am I gonna do for that all that time sitting in the car? So I got down to like rank 1 2 stars, and waited till I
Oh,
got home, finished it, and it was crazy. But yeah. You got any final advice for our listeners? I know we've been talking a while. Any as far as deck building, you got any other things that you have for our listeners?
uh, in regards to
Deck building,
deck building,
or
first thing
just
in
being a better
yeah,
person, or
yeah. First thing, you need to know what the deck is supposed to do. What is your win condition? What is the best thing your deck could possibly do? And figure that out. Because a lot of people will like try to build decks and there's no clear win condition. There's no clear, this is what this deck is trying to achieve. Every deck is trying to achieve something, like its main purpose, like what you're getting to 70%, 80% of the time. The other 20% can be fluff cards, like whether you're playing like Fizzle Snapshot, you know what I mean? Make a snapshot of your hand, put it in your deck. That's like another win condition for value, right? Like you get copies of everything, and that allows you to like do some crazy shit. That's not a win condition. That's extra that you don't need to worry about. The main thing you need to worry about is what is your deck doing and what can it do 80-ish% of the time, and was it doing better than other meta decks? If your deck isn't doing things that are better than other meta decks, it's not going to be a meta deck. Is it doing it consistently 70-80% of the games that you're playing? If it's not doing it consistently, it's not going to be a meta deck. There's certain things you need to think about, again, when building your deck, what it needs to accomplish with the cards that you're putting in there. And if it's not doing that, it's that's like fundamental rule of deck building. There's more to that.
I would say.
If you check me out at www.warshackplays.com.net.org.edu.gov.live. I'm just kidding.
Wow. And we'll have time for that, for sure. Even though we've been going on for close to 2 hours now, we'll still have time for that. The other two things I'd like to add to that, because you brought it up. Like, I think another thing is, when you build a deck, you're going to lose. Just accept that. When you're starting off, it's
You're
not
gonna
going
lose
to
a
work right
lot.
away. You're going to figure it out. And the other thing is, if you get to the point where your deck is doing what you want it to do, and you're losing, then what you're trying to do isn't the right thing.
It's not strong enough. Yeah. Like you need to do something that other decks aren't doing. Like, yeah, if your deck can heal for a lot, well, is there another deck that can heal for more, but it also does this other thing? Because if your deck only does this one thing and it doesn't do it that great, it's not going to beat this other deck that does the same thing but more. You know what I mean? So yeah, you have to like kind of like reflect after each game that you're like playing against decks and you're playing your brew deck, your deck that doesn't exist in the meta, and figure out like what is working, what isn't working, and you have to tweak that. Like after every game, I'm trying to get this like crappy deck to work. I'll be like, all right, what did we do well? What did the deck do that I enjoyed? What did it do that it felt like I was winning? What was winning this game? Okay, this is the thing that was winning. How do I support this? How do I make this winning thing do more? And if I'm like, okay, I wasn't winning at all at any point in time, and it went to turn 8, and at no point did anything feel good, I'll be like, okay, bad draws? Did I have bad draws? Did I feel bad with draws? It's like, no, I felt like I draw well. It's like, okay, well, maybe the deck's bad. If I drew well and I was never winning and I was doing things, didn't work. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to like self-reflect after each game with these off-meta things and be like, all right, what went well? And then you kind of go into each category of like, all right, board state, spells, how much mana did I float? Did I ever feel like I was winning? What was my draw? You know what I mean? Like it's really like it's a lot of work for no reason if you're not a deck builder. And a lot of people aren't deck builders. They just want to play good decks and win. which is there's no problem with that. 90% of players will just want to play a good deck and win. That's what they have time for. They have 30 minutes to an hour a day. Give me a good deck. I want to win.
Yeah. And it's worse, like I was saying, it's definitely worse when you're like, hey, I did the thing, and then the opponent just runs you over next turn.
Yep.
You were saying too, did I just draw bad? Well, if you get to like game 10 and you're still, did I just draw bad? There's something wrong with the deck too.
Yeah.
Because eventually the draws aren't going to, like, yeah, you're going to draw bad sometimes, but if you're drawing bad every time, well then.
There's a problem.
There's something wrong.
Why am I drawing bad every time?
Well, Doc, this has been a lot to take in. I'm full, but I think I have room for dessert. What do you think?
Yeah, dessert sounds good. So listeners, leave us a review. Give us whatever rating you feel like we deserve. 5-star ratings just help us with visibility, because Apple Podcasts and Spotify don't do great at promoting newer shows. So just let us know what we're doing, good, bad, and ugly, so that we can improve the show and make it the show that we want it to be. Warshack, one final question for you.
Was good.
What is your favorite dessert?
All right. You're not going to like this answer. So I do not like sweets at all. No brownies, cupcakes, ice cream, candies. As I grew up as a kid, I had a stepmom, and I was never allowed to eat any sweets at all. Like, I would go Halloween trick-or-treating. I'd come back with, the bag, and I would have to give her my bag, and she would replace my bag with, like, Cliff Bars and apples and, like, things that aren't my bag that I gave her. So now, as an adult, when I eat sweets or any sort of dessert, it just makes me feel not good because my body is not used to that level of sugar or sweetness. So like wines, I can't even drink sweet wine because it just makes me uncomfortable. Like, literally just my body feels uncomfortable. So no sweets for me, no desserts.
So when you want to eat a dessert that works for you, what is that kind of dessert? Or like an indulgent meal or whatever?
Melting pot or some sort of like where I can melt cheese onto substances. Give me like melted cheese on bread, melted cheese on anything. Just let me melt cheese on items. Then I'll eat that. I'm a big fan of the cheese.
Okay.
If I can melt like any sorts of like cheddar cheese, Swiss cheese, Gouda cheese, it's like, you know what I mean? If you've ever been to a melting pot,
Yeah.
like that, like
Yeah.
that is an appetizer. I get that as the dessert. I take that back. I get it as an appetizer. I get my main meal, and then I also order it as dessert. The cheese.
Nothing wrong with that.
So, Warshack, where can people find you?
Yeah. So I have a YouTube where I post videos pretty much every day or every other day, whether they're long form content or short. I stream on Twitch 3 or 4 days a week. I stream on YouTube and Kick the other 3 to 4 days of the week. And I have Instagram, Twitter, pretty much everything. If you Google Warshack, I'll be there. So thanks for having me, guys. It was a pleasure. A lot of great questions this evening. One of the best. Honestly, this is one of the best interactions of podcasts I've been on. Good questions, good converse. It was a great time. So thanks for having me.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being on.
Doc, where can people find
Tito,
you?
where can
You go.
Yeah. You can find me Twitter and Twitch at Doc McButt, but mostly on Twitter because I'm inactive on Twitch. How about yourself, Tito?
You can actually find me on Twitter and Twitch, and I'm not inactive on Twitch. Mostly playing Hearthstone, sometimes playing Civ, maybe playing some of these other games, but for the most part, Hearthstone. Warshack, any shout-outs this week?
I don't think so. I'm good. I don't think I've ever done a shout out. I don't even know what that means.
You're good. So first and foremost, I want to thank you, Warshack, for being on the show. Because you're a much bigger space in the content area for Hearthstone than we are. So we appreciate your time and thank you for being here. And then I'm going to shout out Man at Arms and Storm Rage over at Squelch, because I just had such a fantastic time on their show last week. They're just good people. If you haven't listened to their show, if you want to listen to a general Hearthstone podcast that just has a lot of fun, like friend vibes, just listening to wholesome, like friend content that talk about Hearthstone every now and then, Squelch is definitely a show that you should have on your
What were
radar.
their names again? I'm sorry, I haven't heard of this.
The content creators or the show?
Can you go over both? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Mad at Arms.
Mad in Arms.
And Storm Rage from Blizzlet, if you've ever seen any of those pop up. And then the show that they do together with Dano is called Squelch.
Okay.
And they're a Hearthstone podcast, but most of the time they end up talking about food.
Yeah. Life stuff.
Yeah, they're a good
good.
time. So I definitely do recommend anyone to listen to that show if you haven't listened to it before. Tito, how about yourself? Do you have any shout outs you want to do?
Sure, but and you probably also want to listen to Blizzlet. So Daniel's on that one. Stormreach Sheldon's on that one too with Smarms. I don't know if you know Send Me Your Arms and Lore Master Eve and Old Teto, but they mostly talk not Hearthstone as well. They're a little more adult. They talk about like which of the like this past one. Basically, their rating system was they went over all the Titans that have been released, and they rated them based on how hot would the third person be in a threesome for you to have a threesome with them. So it's a little like it wasn't even about
it's a
how
bit
hard.
unhinged.
So
That's what I'm talking
it-
about, baby. This is what Hearthstone's missing.
Yeah, no, Blizzlet is definitely a show you probably would enjoy when you're not making all your wonderful content. But no, definitely Warshack. Anytime I've ever asked Warshack for anything, he's been like, "Yeah, dude, I'm in." So I appreciate you greatly, and I appreciate. I shout out my teammates. We just picked up Judge as a teammate on Hyper Horizon.
Huge, by the
And,
way, huge. Big streamer. Met him at TwitchCon. I can speak highly of Judge. Great guy, great streamer. Like, had drinks with that guy. Good time. Good player. Solid.
Yeah, he is fantastic. Not only is he a good streamer, he does the arena. We had him on the show a few weeks ago, but he's just generally a great person. And anytime I've had any interactions with him, he's been fantastic. So
Yeah.
very excited to have him on Hype. And you know, all my team, a lot of my teammates are really stepping up lately. Peaceful Sea has really been doing a lot. He's a great streamer. He's a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And it just, you know, it's been a lot of good time. But I think now that we've hit the 2-hour mark, I think we're probably pretty good right about now. So I think we're toast. We'll see you guys.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Slide two brothers meet one another when they slide up to the mic. It's bread and butter with one another. Let's start up that recording light.